There is an eternal principle woven into the fabric of creation, the assurance that justice will prevail, no matter how long it takes. The natural world reflects this truth in subtle ways. The seed that is planted in darkness and buried beneath the soil eventually emerges into the light, bringing forth fruit. Similarly, the cruelty inflicted by others' acts of malice, betrayal, or harm is not beyond the notice of the divine. These actions are not forgotten, and the God who created the heavens and the earth is neither blind nor indifferent to human suffering. He is a God of justice, and his justice is perfect. It is impartial, deliberate, and certain even when it seems delayed. Cruelty comes in many forms. It can be the harsh words spoken to wound a tender heart, the betrayal that crushes trust, or the systemic oppression that denies individuals their dignity and freedom. Whatever its form, cruelty leaves scars visible or invisible that can linger for years. Those who have been wronged often grapple with questions that tug at their faith. They ask, where is God in my pain? Why does he allow injustice to flourish? How long must I endure? These questions, though painful, are not signs of doubt but cries for understanding. They reflect a longing for the assurance that evil will not have the final word. In the midst of suffering, it is natural to feel the weight of injustice pressing down on the soul. There is a temptation to retaliate, to repay cruelty with cruelty, or to seek vengeance with one's own hands. Yet God's word cautions against this response. The scriptures remind us that vengeance belongs to the Lord and that he will repay. This divine promise is not an invitation to passivity, but a call to trust in the character of God. He sees the tears that fall in secret and hears the silent prayers whispered in anguish. Every act of cruelty is recorded, and every injustice will be addressed in his time. The difficulty lies in waiting for God's timing. Human nature craves immediate resolution, but God's justice operates on a scale that transcends human understanding. His ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. What may seem like a delay to us is often part of a larger plan that we cannot yet see. In the waiting, God is working, refining hearts, building character, and preparing a resolution that will reveal his glory. Patience, though difficult, becomes a form of faith, an act of surrender that acknowledges God's sovereignty over all things. The scriptures are filled with stories of individuals who endured cruelty and saw God's justice prevail. Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, suffered years of hardship before rising to a position of power where he could confront his oppressors. David, hunted by King Saul, chose to spare Saul's life, trusting that God would vindicate him. Even the ultimate example, Jesus Christ, endured the cruelty of the cross, trusting that God's plan would triumph over the forces of evil. These stories are not just historical accounts, they are testimonies of God's faithfulness and reminders that his justice is worth waiting for. Cruelty often arises from a place of insecurity, fear, or a desire for control. Those who inflict harm on others are often themselves bound by unseen chains. Their actions, though destructive, reflect their own brokenness. Recognizing this truth does not excuse their behavior, but offers a perspective that fosters compassion without compromising justice. Forgiveness becomes possible, not as an endorsement of their actions, but as a release of the burden of anger and bitterness. Forgiveness is not for their benefit, but for yours. It is an act of liberation, a refusal to let their cruelty define your life or dictate your peace. God's repayment of cruelty is not limited to punishment for the wrongdoer. It also includes restoration for the one who has been wronged. His justice is redemptive, bringing healing to wounds and turning ashes into beauty. The journey of restoration is not always immediate, but it is always certain. As you place your trust in God, he begins to work in ways that are both subtle and profound. He brings people into your life who offer encouragement and support. He opens doors of opportunity that lead to growth and renewal. He transforms pain into purpose, using your experiences to equip you to help others. In moments of despair, when the weight of cruelty feels unbearable, it is essential to cling to the promises of God. He has declared that he will never leave you nor forsake you. His presence is a constant source of strength and comfort, even in the darkest valleys. Prayer becomes a lifeline, not because it changes God's will, but because it aligns your heart with his. Through prayer, you are reminded that you are not alone, that your pain is not meaningless, and that your story is not over. God is with you, and He is for you. As you navigate the aftermath of cruelty, it is important to guard your heart. The enemy seeks to use pain as a weapon, planting seeds of doubt, anger, and resentment. Do not give him a foothold. Instead, fill your heart with the truth of God's word. Meditate on scriptures that speak of His justice, His love, and His faithfulness. Surround yourself with a community of believers who will support you and remind you of God's promises. Worship becomes a powerful tool, shifting your focus from the cruelty of others to the goodness of God. In worship, you find strength to endure and hope to persevere. The process of healing from cruelty is often slow and challenging. There will be days when the pain feels fresh and the wounds raw. On such days, remember that healing is not linear. It is a journey with highs and lows, progress and setbacks. Be patient with yourself and extend grace to your own heart. Trust that God is working in you even when you cannot see the evidence. His grace is sufficient and His strength is made perfect in your weakness. Lean into His embrace and allow Him to carry you through. God's repayment of cruelty is not only a future promise but a present reality. His justice is active in the world today, even if it is not always visible. He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events and aligning circumstances to fulfill His purposes. Trust in His timing and His wisdom, knowing that He is faithful to complete what He has begun. Your role is not to seek vengeance, but to remain faithful, to walk in obedience, and to trust that God will repay their cruelty in ways that are both just and redemptive. When you choose to trust God with the injustices you have faced, you are declaring your faith in His ultimate authority. This trust is not passive resignation, but an active decision to believe in His sovereignty. It is the realization that His ways are perfect and that His timing is precise. Even when the pain feels unbearable and the scars seem permanent, God is present. He is not distant or detached. He is intimately involved in your story. Every tear you cry is noticed, every prayer you whisper is heard, and every sigh of despair is felt by the one who loves you more deeply than you can comprehend. The challenge lies in surrendering your desire for immediate vindication. It is human to crave closure, to want justice served swiftly and visibly, but God's justice is often delivered in ways that surpass human understanding. It is comprehensive, addressing not only the wrongs committed, but also the wounds inflicted. He restores what has been broken, rebuilds what has been destroyed, and renews what has been lost. His justice is not confined to punishment, it is redemptive, bringing beauty from ashes and joy from mourning. Cruelty often leaves the victim questioning their worth. The harsh words or actions of others can erode self-esteem and plant seeds of doubt. But your worth is not determined by the opinions or actions of others. It is defined by the one who created you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, a masterpiece of divine craftsmanship. No act of cruelty can diminish your value in God's eyes. He sees beyond your pain and recognizes the strength within you. He calls you His child, and in Him you find your identity and purpose. As you walk through the aftermath of cruelty, remember that you are not alone. God's presence is your refuge, and His promises are your anchor. He has declared that He will fight for you, that He will defend you, and that He will repay those who have wronged you. His justice is not limited to the individual who caused your pain. It extends to the systems and structures that perpetuate injustice. God's kingdom is one of righteousness, and He is committed to establishing His will on earth as it is in heaven. In the face of cruelty, it is tempting to allow bitterness to take root in your heart. Bitterness, however, is a poison that harms the one who harbors it more than the one who caused it. Do not give the enemy the satisfaction of seeing you consumed by anger or resentment. Instead, choose forgiveness not because the offender deserves it, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself, a release of the burden that weighs down your soul. It is an act of defiance against the power of cruelty, a declaration that you will not be defined by what was done to you. God's repayment of cruelty often involves a reversal of circumstances. The one who was oppressed is elevated, and the one who inflicted harm is brought low. This reversal is not just poetic justice, it is a demonstration of God's power and faithfulness. He exalts the humble and brings down the proud. He lifts up those who have been cast aside and restores what was taken. In His time, He makes all things right. Your role is to remain faithful, to continue walking in obedience, and to trust in His promise to repay. The process of waiting for God's justice is not without purpose. In the waiting, God is working in you as well as in your circumstances. He is refining your character, deepening your faith, and drawing you closer to Him. The waiting is an opportunity for growth, a season of preparation for what lies ahead. Do not despise the process, for it is in the process that you are transformed. God is not only concerned with what happens to you, He is deeply invested in what happens within you. Cruelty can leave you feeling isolated, as though no one understands your pain. But God understands. He knows the depth of your hurt and the weight of your sorrow. He has walked the path of suffering Himself and is intimately acquainted with grief. When you pour out your heart to Him, you are met with compassion and comfort. He does not dismiss your pain or minimize your experience. He validates your feelings and offers His peace. In His presence, you find solace for your soul and strength for your journey. The assurance that God will repay their cruelty is not a license to harbor resentment or to wish harm upon others. It is a reminder that justice is in His hands, not yours. Your focus should be on healing, on allowing God to restore what has been broken, and on living in a way that honors Him. Let go of the need for retribution and trust that God's justice is both fair and complete. He will handle what you cannot, and His repayment will be perfect in its execution. When you look back on your life, you will see that God was faithful to His promise. The cruelty you endured will not define you. It will become a testimony of God's goodness and grace. The scars you bear will not be marks of defeat, but symbols of victory. You will see how God turned your pain into purpose, how He used your story to inspire and encourage others. Your life will be a testament to the truth that God is a God of justice, that He repays cruelty, and that He restores His people. The beauty of trusting God with the repayment of cruelty is the freedom it brings. When you release the need to avenge yourself, you unburden your heart from the weight of anger and pain. You are no longer tethered to the actions of those who have wronged you. Instead, you are free to focus on the things that truly matter: your relationship with God, your purpose, and the life you are building. Trusting in God's justice does not mean ignoring the pain or pretending it didn't happen. It means acknowledging the hurt while choosing to believe in His power to heal and restore. In the silence of waiting, God often speaks the loudest. He reminds you of His promises and His unchanging nature. The same God who delivered His people from slavery, who restored the fortunes of Job, and who raised Christ from the dead is the God who fights for you. His faithfulness spans generations, and His power knows no limits. The cruelty of others may seem overwhelming, but it is no match for the might of God. He holds the universe in His hands, and yet He cares deeply for your heart and your circumstances. Sometimes God's repayment of cruelty comes in ways that are unexpected. It may not always look like punishment for the one who caused harm. Instead, it might manifest as overwhelming blessings for you. God has a way of preparing a table before you in the presence of your enemies. He lifts you up and sets you in a place of honor, not to humiliate others, but to demonstrate His faithfulness. He blesses you abundantly, turning your pain into a platform for His glory. When you see His hand at work, you will realize that His repayment is far greater than anything you could have imagined. There is a profound peace that comes from knowing that God is in control. When you release the need to control the outcome, you open yourself to the peace that surpasses all understanding. This peace is not dependent on your circumstances, but on your trust in God. It allows you to walk through the valley of the shadow of death without fear, knowing that He is with you. It empowers you to face each day with hope, even when the weight of cruelty threatens to overwhelm you. This peace is a gift, a reminder that God's presence is enough. The journey of healing from cruelty is deeply personal. No two experiences are the same, and no one can fully understand the depth of your pain. But God understands. He knows every detail of your story and every emotion you have felt. He sees the tears you have cried and the wounds you carry. He does not rush you through the process of healing, but walks with you every step of the way. His love is patient, His grace is sufficient, and His mercy is new every morning. Lean on Him and let Him guide you through the process of restoration. In the moments when the weight of cruelty feels unbearable, remember that you are not defined by what has been done to you. Your identity is rooted in God, not in the actions of others. You are His child, chosen and beloved. The cruelty of others may have caused pain, but it does not determine your worth. God has a purpose for your life, and He is faithful to complete the work He has begun in you. Trust in His plan, even when it feels unclear. He is working all things together for your good and His glory. As you move forward, you may find that the pain begins to transform. What once felt like a heavy burden becomes a source of strength and compassion. The wounds you have endured give you a unique perspective, enabling you to empathize with others who are suffering. Your experiences become a testimony of God's faithfulness, a beacon of hope for those who are struggling. In sharing your story, you bring glory to God and encouragement to others. Your pain is not wasted, it is redeemed and repurposed for something greater than you can imagine. The assurance that God will repay their cruelty does not absolve you of the responsibility to live righteously. It is not an excuse to harbor bitterness or to act in ways that dishonor God. Instead, it is a call to live in alignment with His will, to reflect His love, and to trust in His justice. Your actions and attitudes should be a testament to your faith in Him. Let your life be a reflection of His grace, a demonstration of what it means to trust in the God of justice. In doing so, you become a witness to His power and goodness. There will be times when it feels as though justice is delayed, when it seems as though cruelty has gone unpunished. In these moments, hold fast to the truth of God's promises. He is not slow in keeping His word. He is patient, working all things according to His perfect plan. His justice may not come in the way or time you expect, but it will come. Trust in His timing, for He sees the end from the beginning. He is not bound by human limitations, and His ways are beyond comprehension. Rest in the knowledge that He is faithful. As you wait for God's justice, allow His love to fill your heart. His love is the antidote to the bitterness that cruelty seeks to plant within you. It is a love that heals, restores, and renews. It is a love that empowers you to forgive, to let go of the past, and to embrace the future. His love is a constant reminder that you are not alone, that you are deeply valued, and that your pain has not been overlooked. Let His love be the foundation upon which you rebuild your life, a life that reflects His glory. The promise that God will repay their cruelty is not just about justice, it is also about redemption. God's repayment is transformative, taking what was meant for harm and using it for good. He takes the ashes of your pain and creates something beautiful. What others intended to break you becomes the foundation for your strength. This divine exchange is a testament to His ability to redeem even the darkest circumstances. In His hands, your story becomes a masterpiece of grace, a reflection of His unyielding faithfulness. It is important to recognize that God's justice is not motivated by human emotions. Where we might seek vengeance, God seeks restoration. Where we might want immediate retribution, God considers the eternal implications. His justice is pure, devoid of malice or selfishness. It is designed to bring about healing and wholeness, not just for you, but for the world around you. Trusting in His justice requires a willingness to surrender your own desires, to let go of the need for personal revenge, and to embrace His higher purpose. In the process of waiting for God to act, your faith will be tested. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, whispering that perhaps justice will never come. During these times, hold fast to the truth of God's character. He is not a man that He should lie, nor is He slow to fulfill His promises. His word is a firm foundation, and His faithfulness endures forever. When the weight of doubt becomes heavy, immerse yourself in His presence. Seek Him in prayer, in worship, and in the pages of His word. There you will find the reassurance you need. God's repayment is not limited to addressing the actions of others. It extends to the restoration of your soul. Cruelty has a way of leaving invisible scars, wounds that are not easily seen but are deeply felt. God is the healer of those wounds. He binds up the brokenhearted and restores the weary. His healing is not superficial, it penetrates to the very depths of your being. He addresses not just the symptoms, but the root causes of your pain. In His presence, you find a safe place to process your emotions, to grieve, and to heal. As you heal, you begin to see the evidence of God's work in your life. The strength that emerges from your suffering is not your own, it is the strength that comes from Him. The joy that begins to replace your sorrow is a reflection of His goodness. The peace that guards your heart and mind is a gift from the one who calms the storms. Each step of your journey becomes a testimony to His power and love. Your life becomes a living witness to the truth that God repays cruelty, restores what is broken, and redeems what is lost. The journey through cruelty is often a lonely one, but you are never truly alone. God's presence is with you, guiding you and sustaining you. He places people in your path to encourage and support you, to remind you of His love. He surrounds you with His creation, a reflection of His beauty and care. Even in the darkest moments, His light shines. He is the anchor that holds you steady when the waves of pain threaten to overwhelm you. Trust in Him, for He is your refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble. The work that God does in your life is not just for your benefit, it is also for the benefit of others. The comfort you receive becomes the comfort you extend to those who are hurting. The lessons you learn become wisdom you share with others. Your testimony becomes a source of hope for those walking through similar experiences. In this way, God uses your story to build His kingdom. What the enemy intended for evil, God uses for good. Your life becomes a beacon of His grace, a living example of His ability to repay cruelty with His justice. Patience is a critical aspect of trusting in God's justice. His timing is not our timing, and His ways are not our ways. It is tempting to grow impatient, to wonder why the wicked seem to prosper while the righteous suffer. But God's perspective is eternal, and His plans are perfect. He sees what we cannot see and knows what we do not know. He is not indifferent to your pain, nor is He unaware of the injustices you have faced. He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events in ways that will ultimately reveal His glory. When you reflect on the promise that God will repay their cruelty, let it fill you with hope. This hope is not wishful thinking, it is a confident expectation based on the character and promises of God. It is the assurance that He is who He says He is, and that He will do what He has said He will do. This hope anchors your soul, giving you the strength to persevere. It reminds you that your story is not over, that the pain you have endured is not the final chapter. God is still at work, and His plans for you are good. God's repayment often includes a restoration of what was lost. He is a God of restoration, bringing back what was stolen or broken. This restoration is not always in the form of material possessions or relationships. Sometimes it is the restoration of peace, joy, and purpose. It is the recovery of your identity, the rebuilding of your confidence, and the renewal of your hope. God's restoration is complete, addressing every aspect of your being. He does not leave any area untouched, for He is a God who finishes what He starts. In the hands of God, even the deepest wounds can become sources of unimaginable strength. The cruelty inflicted by others may have been designed to diminish you, but in God's redemptive plan, it becomes the very soil in which your resilience is cultivated. This is the mystery of God's workings. He transforms what was intended for evil into something that works for your good. What once felt like an unbearable weight becomes the cornerstone of your testimony. The pain that seemed insurmountable becomes the evidence of His healing power and the depth of His love. God's repayment is not driven by the same emotions that fuel human vengeance. His justice is rooted in holiness, wisdom, and love. While humans may act out of anger or a desire for retribution, God acts with the intent to bring about righteousness and restoration. His justice serves a greater purpose, one that aligns with His eternal plan for humanity. This divine perspective reminds you that God's actions are always aimed at revealing His glory and bringing people closer to Him. It is not merely about punishing wrongs, but about demonstrating His sovereignty and grace. In the silence of waiting, it can feel as though God is distant, but He is never far from you. His presence is constant, even when you cannot perceive it. He walks with you through every trial, offering comfort and guidance. He collects every tear and hears every prayer. The waiting is not a sign of his absence, but of his meticulous care. He is aligning circumstances, shaping hearts, and preparing you for what lies ahead. His timing, though often mysterious, is always perfect. Trust in his process, for he is a God who makes no mistakes. The transformative power of God's justice extends to your own heart. As you entrust him with the repayment of cruelty, he begins to work within you, removing bitterness and anger. He replaces these with peace, joy, and a sense of purpose. This inner transformation is one of the greatest testimonies to his power. It shows that his justice is not only about what happens externally, but also about the renewal that occurs within. Your ability to rise above the pain and live a life marked by grace and love is a testament to the work he is doing in you. There is a profound freedom that comes from releasing the need for personal vengeance. When you lay down the burden of seeking justice on your own, you make room for God to work. You step out of the role of judge and into the role of his beloved child. This shift allows you to experience the peace that comes from trusting him completely. It frees your mind from the constant replaying of past wrongs and your heart from the weight of unresolved anger. This freedom is a gift, one that allows you to move forward with hope and confidence. As you journey through this process, you may find yourself encountering moments of doubt and frustration. It is natural to question why the wicked seem to thrive while the righteous endure hardship. In these moments, let the word of God be your anchor. The scriptures are filled with reminders of his faithfulness and his ultimate justice. They tell the stories of individuals who faced great suffering yet witnessed God's mighty hand at work. These accounts are not just historical records, but assurances that his character remains the same yesterday, today, and forever. The path of healing and restoration often leads to unexpected places. What begins as a journey marked by pain can become a journey marked by purpose. The experiences you endure shape you in ways that prepare you for greater things. They equip you with the empathy and wisdom needed to minister to others. Your scars become a roadmap for those who are lost, a testament to the power of God's grace and mercy. In this way, your pain is not wasted. It becomes a tool in the hands of the Master, used to bring hope and healing to others. God's justice is not always immediate, but it is always certain. This certainty is a source of hope, a reminder that the story is not yet finished. The cruelty you have endured is not the end, and the actions of others do not have the final say. God is writing a greater narrative, one that will reveal his glory and your triumph. In this narrative, every tear will be accounted for, every injustice addressed, and every wound healed. Trust in the author of your story, for he is faithful to complete the work he has begun in you. As you reflect on the promise that God will repay their cruelty, let it fill you with a sense of peace and assurance. This promise is not just about justice for the wrongs you have experienced, but also about the restoration and renewal of your life. It is about the way God takes the broken pieces and makes them whole. It is about the way he turns mourning into joy and ashes into beauty. His repayment is holistic, addressing every aspect of your being and your circumstances. It is a testament to his love, his power, and his unchanging faithfulness. Each day that you walk in faith, trusting God's justice, is a victory over the darkness. It is a declaration that you will not be defined by the cruelty of others, but by the grace of God. It is a choice to live in the light, to embrace hope, and to pursue the purpose he has for you. This daily act of faith is a powerful witness, a testament to the transformative power of God's love and justice. It is a reminder to the world that he is a God who sees, who cares, and who acts in his perfect timing.